Officially, good morning to everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me and taking time out of your morning to join Dr. Tanya live. I am, of course, Dr. Tanya. Before we dive in, I'm going to do something I've been doing since day one of going live, and that is to ground us in a word of scripture. And that is from Ephesians 2 and 10, which says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we could do that he, the good things that He planned for us long ago." So that really is good news. That's just a reminder of who we are, how special we are, how unique we are, how God was intentional when He made us. All of those things really should inspire us and um, help us to feel encouraged because we know that there are good things that God has planned for us. We're not an accident. The business that we're dreaming, the any dream that we're trying to get off the ground, all of that is a part of what God has planned for us. And that whatever happens, I want you to walk away today feeling like you know that God is looking out for you. Welcome again. If you would like, I would love for you to be able to follow me if you're not already following me on my social media. Feel free to share with people that you know that we're doing this and that we are going live. And again, I want to just say thank you for joining me. This is day 32 of my 90-day challenge. Every single day, I am showing up live to encourage women and some men who are ready to start a business, who have a dream that they've been sitting on. Maybe they started it already, but they don't know what to do with it. Maybe they're trying to get it off the ground or they're looking to build it and to grow it. Those are the people that I am here to talk to, and I am blessed to be able to do it. I've been doing it for today, makes 32 days. And this is Dr. Tanya. This is Dr. Tanya Live, excuse me. And I call this Real Talk for Women Building Their Businesses. So today, our topic is from job to calling. That's what we're going to talk about today, from job to calling. So now, um, let me get this other thing going on my other screen here because I've got several different social media platforms going at one time. And I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity, if they want to engage with the chat, that I can actually see them engaging with the chat. So we're going to be talking about kind of a framework for going from your job to walking in your calling. Now, for some people, they are walking in their calling with the job that they have. Um, but not that's not everybody's story, right? So there are, I forgot the statistics. I should have looked that up before today. But there are a bunch of people who have been working in jobs, and it doesn't mean that they're not good at their jobs. They may actually be really good at it. They may actually like their jobs. But there are a whole lot of people who do not feel that their jobs are fulfilling the calling that God has given to them and that God has on their lives. And so they're working this job every single day, going in, going home. It's like 9 to 5, 8:30 to 4:30, whatever the time frame is. They're doing it day after day after day. And each day they continue to feel the same thing. Like there's gotta be more. This can't be it. What else could I be doing? What else is out there for me? Asking questions like that, just wondering whether or not beyond that 9 to 5, could they really be doing something more? And when they think about the gifts that God has given to them and all the experiences and their background and what they know about themselves and what they know about the journey that they're on, many of them come to a place where they get burned out in their 9 to 5s. They find themselves feeling blah about going to work. Sunday comes around and they know they've got to get ready for Monday, the start of the new work week, and they are not excited about it. They are, dreading it, wishing the weekend would last for an entire, week. These are people who oftentimes need to really kind of stop and look and think, am I at a place where I need to be considering what else God has for me? Like we all can get to that place. I've been in that place where, from time to time, I'd been in a workplace and things would start happening in the workplace, and it would cause me to question, am I walking fully in my calling and in my purpose? And sometimes the answer is yes, or maybe it is yes in this season. But sometimes the answer could be, I've got more for you. There is more that I want you to do. There is something else that I am calling you to. And our search then starts, right? So we begin this journey of trying to discover what God has called us to. And we begin this journey of trying to discover, like, how do I get to walk in my calling and still earn a living? Still be able to keep a roof over my head, still be able to feed my family and be able to take care of my medical bills and take care of whomever needs to be taken care of. How do I do both of those things? How do I make that kind of a transition? Especially if I'm supposed to be building a business. How do I do that? I had somebody recently say, and I can't even think of who it was, recently say, well, it's easy when you're married and you're a woman, it's easy for you to like take the risk of starting a business because you don't have to worry about, whether or not you're going to be covered. You're covered, when you have, and that is true. There is something to that. But it doesn't mean that if you are single and you don't have a husband, that you cannot walk in your calling. It doesn't mean you're stuck. It doesn't mean you can't move forward in what God has called you to. For many of us, He's waiting for us to move forward. He's waiting for us to take steps so that we can actually walk in the calling that He has for us. And so, I look at a few different things. I jotted down some notes and was thinking about, like what I wanted to say today as I was, just preparing for this session, this whole job to career, not job to career, this job to calling. Like, what does this look like? What does this process look like? Because some people may feel like, I hate my job. I can't stand my job. I want out. And, it could be that, you know, there is a process that you need to go through. So I actually have like 4 seasons. It's a framework that I, have talked about before. And it's 4 seasons where we, kind of go through a process. And so I don't, some people, maybe God says, hey, I need you to leave your job tomorrow because I need you to walk in your calling. I already have something for you. And you're ready for that, right? So in that situation, you need to be obedient. But there's a process that many of us will often go through when we are transitioning from our job or our career to being able to walk in our calling, which for many of us is to build a business that allows us to be able to walk in our calling. And so let's talk about what that potential framework looks like. So that first season that many of us go through is a season of preparation, right? And so it's like God is preparing us for what's ahead. And we can't always see what's ahead. We don't always know what we can look forward to. So in this preparation season, it's a time where you might be being built up, right? So you haven't started the assignment, you haven't necessarily started walking in your calling yet, but you find yourself like being stretched in areas that maybe you weren't looking to be stretched in. Like, because here's the thing, starting a business is is nothing to sneeze at. It is a challenge. There's work that has to be done. It does not always come easily for people when they're getting their businesses started. There's a lot that goes into building and initiating and starting a business. And so you need to be prepared for what's to come. You don't always know. There are seasons in business where things are going amazingly well, right? And then there are seasons when things may be the exact opposite. And it's not because you have stopped working, and it's not because you've stopped putting in effort. It's because seasons change and things happen, or, things may happen that are outside of your control when you're a business owner that may contribute to your bottom line. And so before you jump into starting a business, allow God to prepare you and to stretch you and to build you and to get you to a place where you are ready to transition from your job to walking in your calling and building that business that you have. The one thing about the preparation period is there's a lot of learning that may take place. So if you already know that God is calling you to start a business, there is some preparation that you need to do. So there's a lot to learn about starting a brand new business. So many people will hire a coach like they'll hire me. So, for example, I will walk alongside people while they are still working in their jobs, when they still have a year or two before they're ready to launch their business, and they can walk with me. I will walk with them to help them in that process of preparation. So they are learning what it might take for them to get their business off the ground and to run and operate their business. There's a lot to learn. I wish I had done some of this. This is where I feel like I walked ahead of God back in 2011 when I first launched my business. I feel like I walked ahead of him and I didn't allow him to fully prepare me for business. But I learned, I had to learn the hard way, but many of us will learn. Either way, either your business is going to fail and you quit and that's over for you, or you're going to learn from the process. So allow God to prepare you for the responsibility that is ahead, especially if you build a business and you're not a solo practitioner, meaning, or a solopreneur is another word, where you're the only person in your business. So once you begin to hire individuals, there is a heavy responsibility that comes with hiring other people. And so there's a preparation for that. You need to be prepared for the full responsibility that is to come when you build your business. God gives you preparation time to build your capacity. And that's a blessing to you. And you should see that as a blessing. Don't rush the process. Allow God to do what God does best. And so this is an opportunity where you might be learning to be refined, right? Maybe there's some healing that needs to take place before you start coaching other people on how to live a fulfilling life. Maybe you need to be healed from some wounds and some from trauma that you've experienced in your life. That preparation period could be that time period, could be a time where you are being tested. Will you be able to handle the heat of the challenges that come with building a business? So it could be that you build a business, you hire individuals to work for you, and maybe those individuals don't work out and you've got to fire somebody. I've had to do that in business, but I also had to do that before business. So I went through the process of having to let people go. And it's not an easy process. It's hard for the person who's losing their job, but it's also hard for the person that says, I got to let you go because you're not fulfilling your end of the bargain. That is a hard place to be. I'll never forget, the very first time I had to let somebody go in business was many, many years ago. Not in business, in the workplace, many, many years ago. And it was somebody that I had a really good rapport with. And I remember having to go to him and say, I got to let you go. This isn't working. And like our time here has, and there was protest, and there was like, well, I thought that we were cool, and it wasn't even about us being cool. It wasn't about the relationship. It was about the work that wasn't getting done. And so in that particular workplace, I wasn't the head boss, but I was a boss, and I had to respond to what the head boss was like. Listen, if they're not cutting it in these ways, you cannot keep them. Period. That's a hard thing to have to let people go that you have a relationship with. But sometimes that's a part of the process, the pruning process and the preparation process that we go through when we are building a business, right? Or before we even step out from that job into full time entrepreneurship. So that next phase, that next season that we go through when we are transitioning from our job to walking in our calling and building the business that God has for us, that next season is the planting season. So the planting season is where you begin to move forward in your calling, right? So understand that when you're building a business, there is a risk involved here because it's unpredictable. There are a lot of factors that are outside of your control. And so in this planting season, there's some small beginnings that are happening at this point, and you can't always see what it is that's going to come later. So you have, it's sort of another form of preparation, if you will, where you begin to plant seeds. Here you might begin telling people, hey, I'm going to be starting this business soon. Letting people know. Maybe you begin building a list of people that could potentially be clients or customers of yours during this planting season. You are letting people know that this is coming, that you are getting, like, I was talking to someone yesterday who is writing a book. And, a lot of times people don't realize that when you write a book, if you're looking for that book to do something and you want to go somewhere with that book, that is also a business. And so as we were talking through her she'd written the book, but nothing else had been done beyond that. And so it's like, okay, so let's talk about what's going to happen beyond that. This is part of the planting. So she started talking to people. She started letting them know this book is coming out. Maybe your book club could do something with it. And here's the planting. She's planting seeds. The book's not even out yet, but people will know that when she's ready to launch, that they'll be ready to respond to her. And that is a part of the seeds that you're planting as you are preparing. It's like you're beginning this launch phase. You're planning for the launch phase of your business. It is a planning period, if you will. Um, you're starting to like the process, but you haven't actually like launched it. You haven't like moved forward in it. So you're still working your full-time job. You're still doing the work, but you're also understanding what it's going to take. So maybe you're bringing a board of advisors together or your board of directors together, and you're planting seeds for what's to come. Maybe you are beginning to pull people who may potentially work with you or potentially partner with you in your business. You're pulling them together. This is the planting season, right? So you're taking steps of faith to begin moving forward towards the business that you're going to build. And that hard work, will eventually pay off, because when we plant seeds, so I'm not a gardener, but I do have a garden. It's an internal, like an inside garden. And so um I really am not great at gardening, but I'm learning, right? And so what I notice is when I first start to put the seeds together, like not together, put them to germinate, get them ready for germination. I'm not going to give them plant food in the beginning. And this is the system that I have. It's a system called Garden. And so I don't, but I give them water and I give them light. And so that water and that light, so the seeds have been planted. So they're getting a little bit of what they need. They're learning a little, not learning, but they begin the growing process, right? And so the same happens for you. And at some point, there's going to be a harvest. So at some point, I'm going to be able to transfer them into the actual garden. When I transfer them to the actual garden, I give them plant food and light, continue with the light. I prune them as they need to be pruned. But at some point, I know that I'm going to get some strawberries. I'm going to get some greens. I'm going to get some tomatoes. I'm going to get whatever it is. So that planting season is a part of the preparation as well. But now you've actually like taken steps. You've moved forward in it, right? So then we go through that third season, and that's the season of processing. So some of us are processing. It's a refining part of the season. Our identity is being shaped. We're beginning, like if we're transitioning from a job to getting a business started, people don't know us as entrepreneurs yet. They don't know us as CEOs and as founders and as presidents. They don't know that about us just yet. Or as authors. If we're writing a book, they don't know us in that area of our identity. And so this is beginning to be shaped because we've started planting seeds in the planting season. So people begin to know a little bit about who we are. It's like we start to change as we begin preparing ourselves to walk in this new calling as bosses, as entrepreneurs. as founders, as CEOs and presidents of our companies. This is a part of the process, right? So there may be some things that you have to wrestle with in the processing period because you're changing. The only thing, the not the only thing, the one thing that I realize that when we are being stretched and changed in many ways, like it's hard. It is hard to become somebody that we haven't been. So if we've just been accustomed to being an employee all this time to transition to being the boss is not an easy transition, but it is a process. And so we go through this process. It means that we've got to let some things and some ideas go. So we got to understand that the buck stops with us now. So we're not going through approval processes that we may go through on the job. We are now the decision makers. We're the ones that have to make the decisions about what's going to happen in our business. And so that is a part of the processing season. And as we're going through this, it's like God is shaping us into the bosses that we're going to become. And so as you're being shaped, you've got to let go of some things. You've got to let go of the mindset of an employee. You need to understand what it is to be an employee because when you have employees, you want to be able to work in a way that treats your employees fairly and you have, good policies and procedures in place for them. But there may be some old patterns that you have to break. So maybe as an employee, you could like roll into work however you want to. But when you're the boss, people are now looking at you and people are going to be expecting from you. So you can't just roll out of bed and just show up any old time that you feel like maybe what you did as an employee. There's a level of responsibility. And so when you're going through this processing season, you've got to allow those things to kind of fall off. Whatever those habits were that were challenging for you. Sometimes the processing season means that we might be going through a little bit of a wilderness season where it looks like things might not work, where it's not, like, okay, I got this idea for a business. I really think that I can build it, but things just aren't going the way I need them to go, right? And you might find yourself being discouraged, but this is a part of the process. And a lot of times I'll hear people say, trust the process. And I can't tell you how many people like I've heard say, I hate when people say, trust the process. But it's really not trusting the process. It's really about us trusting God in the process. So, what is he doing in this processing period? What are some tests that I might have to pass in the processing period? As I am building and getting ready to get this business launched and off the ground, I might get some people who say no to me. There may be rejection that comes left and right. Every time I think I've got a great idea for a business, and people keep saying no and closing doors. That may be a part of the process that you have to go through as you are learning how to build the kind of stamina that bosses need, that employers need, that entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs and presidents need, and executive directors need if you're building a nonprofit. And so, God may be showing you a little bit about yourself. You may be being tested. Your patience may be being tested, but when you are the boss, you've got to be strong in many ways. You can't allow the things that bothered you as an employee to bother you as an employer. You've so you're going to be exposing yourself in many ways. God's going to be exposing you to yourself in many ways as he's refining you in this processing period. And so you've got to lean on him and let him show you the parts of you that need to be refined so that you are prepared for what it's like to run a business full time every single day. What might God be removing from you in this process as He is preparing and processing you through? All of these things are, again, a part of the process. It's not easy. So it's like that preparation period builds you, that planting season requires of you, that processing season purifies you. And now you are in the positioning season. That is the fourth season where it allows you to be placed into the new role as an entrepreneur. at the new role as the leader of your own company, as the CEO, the executive director, the founder, the president, whatever you call yourself in this new role. And so you start to see things lining up at this point. You are being positioned. So if you're working your full-time job, you know that you are just about around the corner from leaving that full-time job to being able to walk into the position as the CEO and as the head of your own company. Now you might be getting opportunities. Doors are beginning to open. There are invitations that are coming your way. It's like there's an acceleration that comes. You are right in the right place at the right time, ready to get moving on this thing, this calling that God has for you, right? And so you've gone through the process. You have gone through the preparation and the planting and the processing and the positioning. And so in this positioning phase, the right people are appearing to you. Opportunities are aligning. You're stepping into rooms that you haven't stepped in before. Um, you're seeing more of a picture and a vision of what it is to get this business off the ground. It's like God is beginning to show you what all these other 3 seasons were doing for you. And He's beginning to place you where you need to go. I remember before I relaunched my business in 2021, um, I was also finishing my doctoral program. And I remember the day that I posted on LinkedIn that I am now Dr. Tanya Breland. I remember I started getting calls. It was like, wow, the doors started to open. People started reaching out to me and inviting me. I was getting invitations to do things. It was like everything was aligning. But when I look back and I think about the seasons, it was like there was this preparation season while I was in school and I was learning, and there was a lot that I needed to do, but I was also working a job, getting some experiences that were going to then be used in the business. When I look back, I can see the process, right? I see how God was, how I was doing some planting and He was requiring of me, and how He was processing and purifying me, and then He was positioning me. So by the time I got that degree and had announced that I had that degree, He was positioning me to be able to leave the job. And at that point, I now had a pipeline of potential business clients who were waiting for me to say, I am open for business again. So by the time I actually said, I'm leaving this job, I already had, like, the week later, I already had my first assignment in the business. And it just kept coming, one right after the other, right after the other, right after the other, to the point that the business, like, started to explode, where I didn't have to think about where my next client was coming from. They were just there, and that's a great place to be. But we've got to go through these seasons at times, and sometimes even once you become an entrepreneur, you may have to go back through that season when you are getting ready to go to the next level in your business. So maybe you've gotten to a point where you have broken the six-figure mark in your business, and processing there's another level of growth that needs to happen for you to get to that six-figure mark. Like, okay, it's a big deal to get $100,000 in business. But then it's an even bigger deal when you get a $500,000 in business, right? Or a quarter. Let me break it down. Like a quarter of $1 million in business. And there's a growth process that may come that you have to go through. So even when you're going to that next level of your calling, you may find that you've got to go through a process. So don't despise that. Don't despise the process. Embrace the process, because embracing the process is what's going to get you where God needs you, so that you can make that transition from your job to walking in your calling. Listen, that is not an easy process, but I have enjoyed that process. And I'm one of those people that went through the process. Okay, I said I enjoyed it. Let me just backtrack a little bit. I have enjoyed the benefits of walking through that process, of having this, going through the seasons of preparation and planting and processing and positioning, so that I can transition from my job to my calling, which is the business that I was able to build. And so we all go through this process, right? And so I don't want you to feel like you can't that you can't make that transition. It is we all have to eventually make that transition. We don't just go from our job and just say, "Hey, tomorrow I'm gonna start a business." No, you gotta allow yourself to go through the process. And here's the other thing: as we're being refined, we're also having to tackle things like our fear. So many people who I talk to are dealing with fear, and it's hard for them to make that transition from going to their from their job to their career. And so if fear is something that you're dealing with, I've got the very thing that you need. I want you to go to my website, tanyabreland.com. I have two amazing resources that are going to help you in this process. The first is a 10-day devotional. It's free to you. It's called When Fear Knocks. Fear is going to stand in the way many times of you being able to make that transition into full-time entrepreneurship. But I want you to be prepared for that. I want you to work through that. Part of that planting and that processing period season for you is where you're going to deal with these fears, right? You're going to tackle them, you're going to address them, you're going to name them, and then you're going to move past them. And so, but you need to know what they are. I also have a resource for you. Fear is not your business plan. The reason why some of you can't move forward in your business plan is because fear is blocking you. It is standing in the way. I want you to pick up that resource. It's an ebook. It also has a companion that's interactive just for you. I developed this so that you can process through as you're going through your processing and your purifying stage, that you are able to tackle and address these fears and go deep into where these fears originated and how you're going to address them. All of this is a part of the process. God wants you in a place where He wants to position you to be able to walk fully in your calling and do what it is that He's called you to do. Whatever that business idea that He's put in your spirit, He wants you to walk in it. Go to my website, tanyabreland.com, so that you have access to both of those resources. Um, I want to thank you for stopping in, for being with me. So even watching this on the replay, just spending time with me this morning. I don't take it lightly. If this conversation in any way resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Inbox me, send me a message, email me, tanya@tanyabreland.com. I read all my emails. You can visit my website, tanyabreland.com. You can send me a message on the contact page, whatever it is. Again, I would love to hear from you. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about naming your business and naming it with purpose, okay? Because we want to make sure that we've got names that can sustain us beyond opening day. So, God bless you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was a blessing for you. Enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you.